everything okay?
Do you ever get deja vu?
Every night.
Hey, can you turn that up?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 horror thriller Kill Me Again. The film is written and directed by Keith Jardine and it stars Brendan Fair, Maiandro Delfino, we have Tate Fletcher, Keith Jardine, who wrote and directed the film, Maurice Green, Raoul Max Trujillo, and Matthew Page. Right, the film follows Charlie, a notorious serial killer who is being named the Midnight Mangler. He has just gone on a killing spree and he walks into a diner to get something to eat. However, his life changes forever once he walks into this diner because he finds himself inexplicably in a time loop that he can't escape from. No matter what he does, what chain of events he takes, no matter who he kills, everything that he tries, he just basically ends up in the same old time loop with him walking through the doors and everything playing out exactly the same. And this essentially gets really quite frustrating for Charlie. Right, what are my thoughts on Kill Me Again? Right, well, I think this has got an interesting idea, an interesting concept. It's one of those time loop type movies that we've seen a lot of these last few years, and when they're done right, they can be quite interesting. And this has got an interesting premise for sure. You know what I mean? The spotlight is on Charlie, this, pretty brutal and evil serial killer that can't get out of this time loop. So you've got the whole Groundhog Day thing going on, but for a serial killer in this diner. And the process here is to kind of watch him go through every potential connotation and difference that he can think of to kind of try and make it come out differently. Sometimes he just goes absolutely bonkers and kills everybody. Sometimes he decides he wants eggs, but the chef's not having any of it because he doesn't serve eggs because it's not breakfast. So he has to have this war with the chef. He takes an interest in one of the waitresses and, kills her a couple of times. There's some rude people in the diner. There's two guys at the bar drinking beers. There's a couple who are essentially being unfaithful to their partners in the diner, and you literally get to know that, who they are and what they're doing there through the process of the film, because he has to keep reliving this moment in time. So I mean, it's got kind of that going for it, but it's also got a little bit of a Christmas Carol vibe to it. It's not set at Christmas. I don't mean the Christmas theme. I just mean the Ebenezer Scrooge kind of vibe going for it, in a sense of, you've got this inherently bad man, and obviously I know Ebenezer Scrooge wasn't a serial killer, but he wasn't a vice chap. Ultimately having to come to terms with who he is, what he is, and what he needs to do to kind of get out of this loop sort of thing. And then you get a killer twist, I suppose you could say, right at the end that you'll either warm to or, not particularly enjoy. But there was a little bit of me kind of expected the ending that we got. And to be honest, I think it was probably the right call when you consider who Charlie actually is, and that is a serial killer, essentially, beyond redemption, for obvious reasons. But I think that, the film rests on, it needs strong performances, because essentially you kind of seen the same things over and over again, just with a different kind of connotation of it, sort of thing. But you are essentially spending the whole film in this diner with these characters. So it has to have strong performances, and thankfully what we have here is Brendan Fair, who gives us a very, very strong performance for Charlie. He is undoubtedly, an evil person, but at the same time, he's got great charm and charisma. It almost makes you like him, and then he'll do something, and you'll kind of remember yourself. Oh God, yeah, I forgot he's a serial killer. But he's definitely got a lot of charisma and charm, and that really adds to the film. There's a couple of other characters in the film that make it interesting. There's a guy eating in the corner who I think is Keith Jardine, who's the writer-director. Never says anything, never does anything. No matter what he does, he'll even sit down with him and have conversations. He'll even steal food off his plate. This is Charlie, I mean, and he won't do anything. He won't say anything. So that becomes a bit of an interest. You know, who is he? What's he doing there? Sort of thing. And you do get to that point where you're kind of thinking, well, how is he going to get out of this? You know, what does he have to do to get out of this? Because it seems like, for the most part, he's tried pretty much everything apart from the obvious. And that is kind of what makes the film, you know, interesting in a sense of watching him creatively try and figure out how he can get out of this, you know. But it's increasingly sending him insane, really, because no matter what he does, the loop restarts. So could you imagine doing that? I mean, the film kind of presents it. It does it kind of, probably. I want to say hundreds of times, but it might even be more than that. The fact that he's reliving it and reliving it and reliving it and over and doing it again, doing it again, doing it again. It would send anybody mental, anybody over the edge, sort of thing. And I think the film does a really good job of portraying that, and I think Brendan Fair does a really good job of expressing that on screen. The fact that he's going on a downward spiral and he's no idea what to do. So sometimes he just rolls with it and has fun and kills everybody that he can get his hands on. Other times, you know, it's sheer desperation, and you know he absolutely doesn't know what to do. And other times it's just a maniacal mess, sort of thing. But I have to say, I quite enjoyed this. It's a little bit limited in what it can do, because essentially it's the same idea over and over again, time loop, time loop, time loop, sort of thing. I think with a lesser cast, this probably would have, you know, been quite frustrating to watch. But the cast here kind of make this fun and watchable. It's an interesting, you know, change up on like a serial killer type film. And it's one that I think, you know, if it sounds interesting to you in any way, then you'll probably have a pretty good time with this one. It is nothing special, don't get me wrong, but it's a limited film, but it's also quite entertaining. I was quite entertained watching this. I thought it was a fun watch for the most part. So that's my thoughts on Kill Me Again. I think it's also known as Killer Cafe in some territories. So let me know your thoughts if you're planning on seeing the film, and I will of course be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.